Students, are you just super struggling to keep yourself motivated to do school well? Did you know, though, that researchers over and over and over again have identified three things that every human being needs, and guess what, students, you are a human being as well, to be more motivated in life. And I am here to share those three things with you today. So let's dive in. In case you don't know me, hi, I am Gretchen Wegner. I am the creator of the Anti-Boring Learning Lab, where educators obsess about the science-backed study strategies and executive function tools that every student needs to thrive. And feeling motivated and feeling like you can take action is one way, students, that you can thrive. So let's look at something that the researchers call self-determination theory. Three main things that come up over and over and over again when I was researching motivation that we teach educators, but we don't necessarily teach students about these things. And so I'm here to teach you. And educators, hang on to the end, because as always, I have a very special tip for you about how to share this information directly with students. But first, students, let me talk to you. So self-determination theory has three parts. The first thing that the self-determination theorists say is that people need more autonomy. What is autonomy? That little fist there is my best attempt to draw autonomy. It's like, yeah, I am independent. I can do it. And students really, really benefit from having more opportunities to experience their own autonomy. And yet schools are set up to actually tell students what to do. Too much, in my opinion. But anyway, let's just look at this. To have actual choice is a way to feel your autonomy. If you don't always have actual legit choices, the second one here, to feel like you have choices, is also something. And this is a skill you can work on, how you can reframe your life circumstances to, even when you feel like you don't have a lot of choice, to see the choices you do have. And so that's a key piece of upping your motivation, students. Also, we feel more autonomy when we're able to be ourselves in our school environment. And so students, you can look at, how can I be even more of myself when I'm studying, when I'm learning, when I'm in class? And then finally, can you consent to the activities that you do? Can you say yes or can you say no? A lot of times, students, you can't really consent, right? Like practically speaking, but educators, stay till the end and I have a tip for you around this. And again, students, there are ways that you can reframe how consent works for you as well. So there's always a different way of seeing what's going on at school that may help you feel more autonomous, and an academic coach can help you explore your mindset and your beliefs a little bit more. The next thing that the self-determination theorists say is that we need to feel competence in order to feel more motivated. And if we're not feeling competent in a particular activity or task, we're going to be less motivated to do it. Now that might seem a little like, well, hell, if I can't do it, I'm not going to feel competent. And if I don't feel competent, I'm not going to be motivated to do it. And it's just a self-fulfilling little cycle, right? And that can happen, but there are some ways that you can focus yourself on your competence. So first of all, the first check mark here is that we all do need to feel effective in some capacity. And even if you're making mistakes or having a really hard time with something, there is something else that's happening in that very moment that you are good at doing. Maybe it is you are resilient. Maybe it is you try again and again. Maybe it is that you're good at putting in effort. Maybe it is that you're kind of like me and I'm just good at finding, like, oh, if it's not working, if I don't feel motivated, I find some other way to do it that feels more motivating. So that's one piece of competence. The second check mark here is that we can have beliefs about our past failures or our successes that help us feel more or less less competent. And so students, I ask you to think deeply about, for example, maybe how you responded to not doing so well on a test, whether you failed it or whether you got a B instead of an A, if you're usually somebody who's a quote unquote A student. What thoughts went through your head in response to those past quote unquote failures? And could you stand to do a little cleanup in the voices that you tell yourself so that you are focusing more on your competence rather than the areas in which you don't feel competent? Sometimes we also have beliefs about our successes as well that can get in the way for us. Over and over, I've seen students who have such an easy time in high school actually get to college, and it's the first time that they've been challenged, and boy, did they struggle, because they come into college with this idea like, I'm smart, I got this. And so they don't put in a lot of effort. So that's an example of how a belief about our past failure can really get in the way of our competence. Finally, this last one here is it can really help to have a visual scorecard for how you are improving. Sometimes that looks like just tracking your habits and checking off when you're doing really well with them. Educators, I teach in my anti-boring learning lab, I teach a way of tracking habits and grades that I call the habit tracker, that really transforms those of you who are working one-to-one with students, really transforms their ability to see their own improvement, because sometimes we can just be so down on ourselves that we don't actually see the ways in which we're doing better and better. So that's something for you if you decided you wanted to come join us at the Anti-Boring Learning Lab. The final piece of self-determination theory is something they call relatedness. So here you'll see a picture of one person at the top and three people down below. That student all by themselves up there is all alone, right? Or they're feeling alone, and they want more of a sense of belonging. They have a need for more connection to other people and receiving empathy from other people. And educators, we're going to talk about some tips for that in just a moment. But this last one, also, students need a sense of having a team. And this is something I work really hard on with the educators who come to be trained by me, to help them help students see who is on their team. So students, I'm talking to you right now. Who is on your team? You have so many more people on your team, I think, than you realize. What friends cheerlead you? What friends are friends who you can do quiet study sessions with without getting distracted? Do you have libraries or coffee shops you can go to where there are other quiet people working and that helps you focus? Those people are on your team. Can you invite your parents to keep you on track? Like, hey, I really want to get this assignment done before I go out with my friend tonight. Can you make sure that I do that? That kind of a request is you inviting your parent to be on your team or your caregiver at home to be on your team in a way that, doesn't feel like the parent is nagging them, because you are inviting them in and you have control over that. You have autonomy when you ask your parents to support you. You're leaning into relatedness, and you will feel more competent when your strategy actually works. So that's an example of how these three pieces of self-determination theory work really well together. So students, feel free to comment below. Are there some areas that you notice that you really struggle with one of those three things? Or do you have any questions for me? Please ask below, and I always prioritize commenting on student posts. Educators. This is a moment that I want to see if you'll take a hard look at the way you talk to students. I was just recently reading a book on something called motivational interviewing, and I realized that that is an area that I actually need to grow as an educator. But one of the things this book said was that often educators, and certainly we academic coaches, ask too many questions of students. And questions are wonderful and necessary, but they do not help a student necessarily feel like they have been heard and empathized with. And so learning how to reflect back to a student how they are feeling, what they are thinking is a really important coaching skill that I know I could stand to get better at. And I'm guessing you probably could stand to get better at that too. So think about that. There's something else that I have that I teach that is very helpful called the consent burger. And I've heard from hundreds of coaches and other educators that I've trained now that this really did help their students. They could see their students being more motivated to receive the information that they had to give them when they practiced this thing called the consent burger. And I have a free mini training all about that at antiboringlearninglab.com/library. It's in the Unlock Student Learning free gift there. So go sign up for that and just do a little experiment. Practice for a week, including the consent burger and the way you talk to students. And I bet either that or expressing more empathy or both of those things will really make a difference in growing your students' sense of their own autonomy, their feeling that they're competent, and their sense of relatedness to you. Go grab that, and I will see you all in one more video in this series coming up. Take care.